That's my friend John Proulx improvising along with a backing track that I sent him. This is me improvising to the same track. And this is us together. Also, quick update. I have taken my initial solo and John's initial solo and put them on the website. And if you want, you can go download my solo and John's solo as MP3s and practice your own soloing along with us. Click the card above my head. Hi everybody, welcome to Aimee Nolte Music. Do you ever listen to recordings of people simultaneously improvising or just improvising together? Some of my favorite jazz records are full of this kind of simultaneous soloing, or as I like to call it, reactionary improv. The only time I had really messed around with this reactionary improv was in college when I played in a Dixieland band. In traditional jazz or hot jazz, the tradition was, in many arrangements, to have a blowing chorus where everybody would just go for it all at the same time. That kind of tradition died out over the years for one reason or another, but you can still hear it kind of here and there on recordings throughout the history of jazz. My good friend and longtime bandmate, guitarist Mike Scott and I started messing around with this reactionary improv years ago when we had a steady gig in Koreatown. We played so much that I think we just needed another option besides him soloing and me soloing. So we started soloing together. And we liked it so much that we've kept it as part of our regular performance routine all these years. In fact, there are a few tunes on my latest album, Lighten Up, that implement this idea. The thing I've realized is that the more you improvise simultaneously with the same person, the better you get at it over the years, and you can kind of read each other a little bit better. You have to start at some point, though. I've also realized that it's possible to have one of these kind of reactionary improvisation sessions or moments with complete strangers. I asked John Clayton to be on my last album, and we performed a duet of Bye Bye Blackbird, wherein I got to the session, asked him if he would play essentially 6 choruses of Bye Bye Blackbird with me. One chorus would be the head in, and one chorus would be the head out, but for the 4 in between, I said, let's just take a solo together. I don't really want it to be like you're accompanying me. Let's go for it together. And I think some great things came out of that session. At least for me, I learned a lot. You might remember that I showed up at the Blue Note to watch a Jacob Collier concert a few years ago and had the opportunity to ask Jacob if we could just improvise together on the tune My Romance for a few choruses. And although we had never met each other, that went rather well also. With the quarantine in place, I've been doing some collaborations with my fellow musicians around the planet. And while that's been really fun, I've been missing that live interaction in real time with real people reacting to each other in the moment. And so I reached out to my friend John Proulx, who you should all check out. He's like a living Chet Baker, except unique in a lot of ways. A pianist, a vocalist, an amazing person. I sent him a backing track to the jazz standard I Should Care, and I asked him to do two things for me. One was to record himself taking a solo over the backing track, 2 choruses. And I did the same thing. Then we each sent each other our solos. We just pressed record and each recorded a second simultaneous reactionary solo on top of each other's first solos. In all of these recordings, I've panned myself to the left and John to the right so you can separate just a little more. My idea was to compare the solos and see how much more creative and responsive we could each be as we responded and reacted to each other than we were when we were on our own. The results were really cool, and it was fun to see how each of us kind of morphed ourselves a bit to complement and support each other. So we end up with 4 different situations. John soloing, John reacting, Aimee soloing, and Aimee reacting. The initial comparison that I wanted to make was John soloing and me reacting to it, as well as Aimee soloing and John reacting to it. And then the fun part was going to be just putting John's initial solo and my initial solo together. I'll do it like this. To see how much less random the reactionary solos ended up being than the random pairing of each of us soloing while we were not listening to each other. But as I loaded these into my DAW and started mixing, I realized that the possibilities were a lot more than this. One thing I could do is to put John's solo on top of John's reacting solo. I could also take my solo and put it on top of my reacting solo, just to hear my 2 choruses and John's 2 choruses and see the things that ended up being the same about the 2 solos, to notice what our habits are, and also to notice how much more interesting the reacting solo is than just the solo. It should be way more interesting because he's reacting to ideas that don't just come from inside himself, they also come from me, and vice versa. The other fun thing to do is to play John's reacting solo with my reacting solo. In this case, everything kind of becomes random. As is the case when we play John's initial solo and my initial solo on top of each other. Analyzing this can show us what ideas John and I have just as individual people that are the same. Times when we might land on the same resolution, or times when we might choose the same exact lick or very close variations of licks to choose from as we go. I kind of felt like I was back in high school taking the SAT or something, figuring out how many possible combinations there are but in those scenarios. But more fun than just figuring out combinations was listening to the different combinations. The craziest part was when I put all 4 in my ears at once. I won't bore you with every single iteration of these combinations, but I will be uploading them to my Instagram this week. So if you'd like to follow me, Aimee Nolte Music on Instagram, you can hear how everything lines up. The main thing I learned from doing this was that at a time when I can't play with other people, just simply by sending my solo to John and him sending his solo to me and then making a simultaneous solo, a reactionary improv, I was able to come up with ideas that I wouldn't have been able to come up with otherwise because of what John did. So even though we're apart, we can use each other's ideas to grow as musicians. I'd like to challenge you to give it a shot. See if you can send yourself soloing to a friend of yours and have them send you one as well. React to each other and let me know if you do. Tag me on social media. I would love to hear it, or put a link in the comments. And of course, combining all of the recordings that become possible, like I did, can just teach you truckloads about your own playing or singing, your habits, your tendencies, the way that you respond when somebody decides to take the lead, or the way that you decide to take the lead when somebody else is being more sparse, taking the lead together, seeing where that leads you. There are, infinite combinations, basically. If you've got some time on your hands, I hope you try this reactionary improv with your buddies. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time on Aimee Nolte Music.